Do you have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Well, hello there, and welcome again to Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. Good to have you tuck in for the half hour. You're going to learn a lot. We tell you that every week, and so far we haven't lied once. It's always good information about your employment rights, employment laws, all the fallacies you think that you know about employment law, whether it's your neighbor Steve across the fence or your employer themselves. Chances are it's misinformation, so we clear all that up every week. Reaching out to Lior, who will be on your screen momentarily. Phone number 1-855-821-5900. You prefer email, or in addition to email, that is ask@EmploymentLawyer.ca, and simply the website EmploymentLawyer.ca. We'll give you more information, more contact information throughout the half hour, so we'll get to that shortly. The main topic, severance packages, right? Key things to know about those, because they might come down your way one day. We hope not, but it could happen, so we'll give you all the relevant information as we go forward here. But we always start off with a week that was, Lior. Lots of stuff going on in your world, pal. What have we got going on this week?
Hey, John, awesome to be here, of course. And the reason I always like to be here is because there's so many employment rights that you have, and everyone thinks they know a little bit about employment law. Everyone thinks that they've read something or they heard something, and they think they take things as fact. And unfortunately, most of the time, it's wrong. Well, on this show, we tell you what you actually need to know about your legal rights, about your employment rights, about what your employer can and cannot do, how to deal with difficult situations, how to deal if you lost your job, if you're being mistreated, if your job has changed, if you're being relocated, all those things that you may not know what to do but could actually happen to you. We're going to arm you with the knowledge, with the information, so that you're not being taken advantage of, so that you don't walk away from rights that you actually have. So stay tuned and you'll learn a lot. But of course, this is just a 30-minute show. Beyond these 30 minutes, it's all good. I'm not going anywhere. You can still reach me, phone and email. Throughout the show, you'll get that contact information. Let's have that discussion. But I always like to start off just to give you an example of the types of situations that I deal with in the office. So I spoke with a lady who was unfortunately dealing with what I call the double whammy of employment law. So she had been sick and off on a disability for a significant amount of time, just over a year and a half. And she got a letter from her insurance company saying, we decided, I don't know why, but they decided that she needs to go back to work, that she's no longer disabled enough, and she should be going back to work. And because of that, the insurance company said they're going to cut her off her disability benefits in a little while, in a few months. Of course, that was a shock to her. Just as she's processing this, she's getting another letter from her employer this time saying, oh, we heard you're able to come back to work, that you're no longer disabled, so we expect you back to work very soon. Oh, and by the way, if you don't come back to work, we'll just consider you to have abandoned your job. But what a difficult situation to be in, of course. So she calls me distraught, upset, emotional, wanting to know, what do I do here? I'm still sick. I'm still in physiotherapy. I'm not able to work. I'm speaking to my doctor, says can't work, yet I'm being threatened with no benefits and the loss of my job. So let's be very clear. First of all, the insurance company. The insurance company should not be cutting her off. If she knows and her doctor knows that she cannot work, the insurance company should not be reaching a different conclusion and saying, no, for us, you're good enough to go back to work. They should allow her to stay. The good thing, of course, is we have a whole team at the office dealing exclusively with these disability issues with insurance companies. So I'm going to connect her with these colleagues of mine, and they'll either make sure she stays on benefits or she gets compensation from the insurance company. Now, with respect to her employer, doesn't matter what the insurance company says. If she has a doctor's note saying she cannot work, that's it. She can be off work, and her employer cannot do anything to her other than allow her to be off work. She can be off, whether it's a year or longer, does not matter. She's not abandoning her job. She's not doing anything wrong. So I'm going to get her employer to back off her, but I wanted to remind everyone there, if you're unable to work, you should have your insurance company, if you have coverage, pay you until you're able to go back to work, and your employer should help, should cooperate, should accommodate, not threaten you. If any of that sounds familiar, call me.
How much of that information can the employer ask? How much snooping they can do? Like how sick you are, what's wrong with you, diagnose or prognosis? Well, prognosis, yeah, but how about diagnosis?
Well, very often I get employees calling me saying, my employer wants to know what my condition is, what medication I'm taking, what specialists I'm seeing. All that is offside. You do have a right to privacy. You don't have to tell your employer what your condition is. Maybe it's a mental health issues. Maybe it's a physical ailment. It doesn't matter. You have that right to privacy. You should tell your employer if you can and cannot work. If you know, you should tell your employer how long you're going to be off work. If you need accommodation, you should tell your employer that. Beyond that, your employer should not snoop, should not demand this information. And if you don't provide personal information to your employer, you cannot be punished.
I want to remind you that in addition to being a weekly viewer of this show, you can also be a weekly listener to our long-running radio shows locally here in the GTA. It's Sundays, 1 p.m. on News Talk 1010. Call into the show, ask your questions there. You're free to do so, encouraged to do so, and possibly one of your phone calls, maybe yours, maybe appear on this show so we can talk about it because they're all educational, the ones we choose, right? So we'll get to the first phone call of this show right now. Listen up.
So I got laid off. Our company was bought by a U.S. company, and they decided to close shop in Canada, and they're moving the jobs to the U.S. So we got our notice. So still getting paid for the month, still doing work for the company in the transition. Can I go back now and renegotiate, even though I've already signed the papers?
How long have you worked there for?
2 years.
Cool. What do you think?
So, I get very similar versions of this call very often. Someone losing their job, the company's offered them something, they signed on that piece of paper, and now they realize, wait a second, maybe I shouldn't have. This is one of those cases. So he's lost his job after 2 years. The company said they're going to give him a month's notice, and he's probably starting to think, well, that's not enough, or maybe I should have gone something else. Unfortunately, because he signed, it's not possible now to go back and ask for more. By signing, he gave up his right. So please, please, please don't ever, ever, ever let that happen to you. If you lost your job, you call me before you sign anything. But I want also to show you why he shouldn't have signed. So we're going to go to the severance calculator tool to see how much he should have gotten. You can find the severance calculator at PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca. Let's plug in the information and let's see what we have. So this person at the age of 49, in the middle manager position, been there for 2 years. Company says we'll give you a month's notice. What they should have done is provided 4 to 6 months of notice or severance. That is what he's owed. So not 1 month, 6 months. That is exactly what's at stake for this person. That's why you have to call me, or just do what I just did. Use the severance calculator, of course, PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca, completely free, completely anonymous.
I love him watching, but I hope he's not watching because that's gonna be a knife in the gut for sure, what he missed out on. We got lots to get through here. Our main topic, severance packages, key things to know, but that's on the other side of the break as we continue with lots more Ask a Lawyer here on CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome back to Ask a Lawyer, CP24. John Scholes here. Of course, Lior Samfiru from EmploymentLawyer.ca. Always on the show with us every week. Reach out, 1-855-821-5900. Phone number right there. Below that, email ask@employmentlawyer.ca or scan that QR code. We always have a main topic every week. It's that much more educational to focus on something every week. This could be all of us at one time. Severance packages, key things to know. Point number one, Lior, is there a difference between severance pay, termination pay, pay in lieu of notice? There's a million different names for it, right?
Listen, I see my job here is to simplify things, not to complicate things, and to give you the information that you want. So there's a technical difference between severance pay and termination pay, pay in lieu. Doesn't matter, okay? When it comes to losing your job, it's a question of the compensation that you're owed for losing that job. Generally, we refer to that as severance. The fact that severance may be composed of severance and termination pay should not matter. There's people that kind of try to figure out the differences, kind of break their head trying to make some sense out of it. Don't do that. It's irrelevant. If you lose your job, you're owed compensation. We call that severance, and that's based on a number of factors we're going to get into. Don't care about the differences. If you lost your job, you're owed compensation. That's severance. That's all you care about.
Now, question number two, a lot of our weekly viewers will know this and probably answer it, but how big is your severance package if you let go?
So it'd be nice for me to be able to tell you a formula that you can use at home, a week per year, 2 weeks, 3. No, it's none of that. Your severance is based on several factors. The main factor, not the only factors, but the main factors are your age, your position, and the length of your employment. The longer you work, the older you are, the more senior position, the more severance you're owed. So it's not a direct formula, and that severance can be as much as 2 years' pay, 24 months. It's substantial. The other thing I will tell you is short service employees, employees with 4 years seniority or less, are treated disproportionately better than longer service employees. You may be an employee that's worked for a year, even a few months, and could be owed a few months severance. So if you want to know specifically for you, what is your severance? What does that severance package look like for you? You can call me and I'll tell you. Or as I said before, you can simply go to PocketEmploymentLawyer.ca, click on the severance calculator, and a few seconds later, you'll know all the answers.
You know, nearly every show we always talk about the importance of an employment agreement. How does that affect a severance package?
So an employer has the ability, by way of an employment agreement, to limit your termination entitlements. And oftentimes employers think to themselves, oh my gosh, I don't want to be in a situation where I have to pay someone 2 years severance, so let me have them sign an employment agreement that limits that. So one of the first things we want to do if you lose your job is to review your employment agreement and see, does it limit your entitlements? If you don't have an employment agreement, that is a fantastic thing. That means there's nothing limiting your entitlements. But even if you signed an employment agreement that tries to limit your entitlements, there is a good chance that it doesn't do so successfully. So don't ever assume that your employment agreement limits your entitlements. If you lost your job with or without an employment agreement, call me. You may still be owed your full severance.
Get to one more question for Lior, and this may surprise some of the viewers, but it's going to be an easy lob over the plate for you. Ministry of Labor, contact them if you want more severance, yeah?
Oh, gosh. How long is this show, John? Because I'm going to need more time. No, you cannot contact the Ministry of Labor if you lost your job. The Ministry of Labor can only advise you with respect to your minimum termination entitlements, can only advise with respect to minimum entitlements and only enforce those minimum entitlements. But we don't care about those minimum entitlements. Your full entitlements, sometimes we call those your common law entitlements, have nothing to do with the Ministry of Labor and they cannot help you. So sometimes what may happen is you lose your job, you call the Ministry of Labor, and you get the wrong information. They tell you something that's not correct. So no, if you lose your job, to get what you're owed, you have to speak to me. Don't like me, speak to another employment lawyer. Can't call the Ministry of Labor. You can call the Ministry of Labor if you have an overtime issue or vacation pay or holiday pay issue. You can and you should go to the Ministry of Labor, not if you lost your job.
I want to take a moment and, Lior, refer back to our long-running radio shows here locally. Join us Sunday, 1 p.m. in the afternoon, News Talk 1010. We always grab the phone calls from the radio shows. That's how they get on the show, right? Phone call number 2 is coming up right now. Listen up.
I'm just calling on behalf of my husband. He had been an employee at a company for 10 and a half years, and about 10 months ago, he had reported his district manager to HR just regarding a violation of policies and harassment and such. And ever since then, he was kind of singled out and targeted. And then just recently, last week, he got a notice saying, Kate, you're being temporarily laid off. We're just kind of wondering what our employment rights are.
So it sounds like he did exactly the right thing. If you're being bullied, harassed, mistreated, you should report it to your employer. You should tell them in writing, by the way, what's happening. And you cannot be penalized because of that. That's illegal. We call this reprisal. It sounds like this is exactly what happened. He told his employer that he's being mistreated by someone, and his employer decided, yeah, we don't like that. We're going to punish the employee for doing that. Completely and totally and utterly illegal. Now, the fact that he was also put on a temporary layoff, that could also in itself be a termination of employment. So he has the ability to consider this a termination, get his severance, and potentially other damages as well because of the reprisal. That could potentially even be a human rights violation, depending on the circumstances. So if you're complaining about workplace harassment, as you should, in writing, if your employer doesn't deal with it properly, if it ignores it, or God forbid, if they punish you for it, you get on the phone and you call me. That is completely illegal.
Always appreciate your phone calls. We do them in threes on this show, but the third one, which is next, is coming up after the break. So stick with us. Lots more Ask a Lawyer is on the way. CP24.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on
Welcome back, and thank you for sticking around through that break. Ask a Lawyer here on CP24. Reach out to Lior when we're not on air anytime. Phone number right there on your screen, 1-855-821-5900. Email ask@employmentlawyer.ca, and the QR code is there for reasons. Scan that on your phone, and you can use that as well. I mentioned the third phone call from our radio show. Lior, we'd like to talk about. It's a good one. Again, going to be dealing with severance here. Let's have a listen.
I've been employed for almost 20 years now, and I've been temporarily laid off. I was wondering if I take a layoff and I go back to work, and in the future, if I'm laid off again and then permanently closed, will I receive my initial severance package from that? Or am I allowed to take my severance package now?
So for most employees, a temporary layoff is not something the employer is allowed to do. So she can consider the temporary layoff as a termination and get severance now. Now, if she accepts the temporary layoff and waits at home and goes back to work when called back, that means that the employer now potentially can do it again and again because she accepted it the first time. Of course, if the company shuts down and she loses her job permanently, yes, of course, severance is owed. But with a temporary layoff, you will have a choice to make. Do you accept it and continue working, giving the company the right to do it again? Or do you treat that as a termination? That is up to you. If you want to treat it as a termination, call me.
Lior does a lot of live streaming. How do you join? At stlawyers.ca, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. Tons of great questions during those sessions. Here's the one for this week, Lior. I lost my regional sales job after 6 years. My base pay was $30,000, though I'm usually made around $70,000 after commission. My employer gave me 10 weeks pay as severance, but based it solely on base pay. That doesn't seem right.
It's not right. Well, forget not right. It's not legal. When it comes to your severance has to include all components of your compensation. It's not just your base pay. It's your overtime. It's your bonus. It's your commission. All components. If you want to know if something has to be included, you ask yourself, would I have received it if I'd continued working? And if the answer is yes, I would have, then it has to be included as part of the severance. And it's very common to see employers not including bonuses or commissions. Not right, not legal. So that's issue number one. The second issue is the 10 weeks enough? Well, it's not even close. We're going to go back to the severance calculator. You can find that at pocketemploymentlawyer.ca, and let's see how much severance should be received in this situation. So in a sales role, you see that on the screen, 56 years of age or 55 years of age, been there for 6 years. The company says 10 weeks is all you get. Nonsense. You see there 8 months, not weeks, by the way, 8 months of severance. So not only did the company not include all components of compensation, problem number one, problem number two, even bigger is, guess what? 10 weeks is not even close. 8 months is the right number for you at home. If you lost your job, are worried about losing your job, or are just curious, go to pocketemploymentlawyer.ca and use the severance calculator.
And thank you very much for reaching out again. That's on the live stream. We've got time to squeeze in an email on the other side of the break, which we'll carry on with after a short break right here. Ask a Lawyer on CP24. Stay with us.
You have questions about your employment rights? Ask a Lawyer is here for you. Each week, experts from EmploymentLawyer.ca answer your questions. Visit cp24.com/askalawyer and watch Wednesdays at 9:30 p.m. on CP24.
Welcome back. Ask a Lawyer. This is CP24. John Scholes here, and joining me again this week, Lior Samfiru. Reach out to Lior when the show is not happening. Phone call may be the way to do it if you prefer. 1-855-821-5900, or email, or both, ask@employmentlawyer.ca, or use that QR code on the right side of your screen. Okay, we have an email question. Let's get to it. Lior says, I was denied long-term disability benefits last year. I appealed the insurance company's decision twice, but they haven't changed their mind. Am I out of options?
Gosh, I wish we had more time for me to answer this question, but let me answer it to the best of my ability. Here's the thing. That appeal, frankly, is a waste of time. You're appealing to the people that have already decided they're going to cut you off. They're not going to change their mind. frankly, I'm going to be very blunt. That appeal is there to frustrate you so that you do it and then you get denied and you feel, well, I tried, so I guess I'm done. It's a waste of time. Don't do that. They're not going to change their mind that way. You have options. We can take legal action against the insurance company. By the way, sometimes just contacting the insurance company from my office, they say, okay, yeah, now that you've called us on it, we will back off. So that appeal is a waste of time. You have options. If you've been cut off disability benefits, I don't care if you've been on benefits for a month or for years, you call me. We have a whole team dealing with this. They can help you right away.
It's that word appeal that throws everybody off because everyone thinks it's, it's an appeal. It's, the Court of Canada. No, it's an internal process, isn't it?
It's an internal process where the same people that have already said no are going to say no again. It's not useful. It's not a good use of your time. Instead of filing that appeal and waiting at home, in the meantime, you may not even have benefits, is get us involved on day one, immediately. Forgo that appeal. By the way, you don't even have to do that appeal. I recommend not to bother with it. Let us do what we do and get you the benefits you're owed.
And it can happen numerous times, 2, 3, 4, 5 times they can ask you to appeal. You're a hamster on a wheel. That's all there is.
That's it. It's a waste of time. The nice thing is it is easy to resolve these disability benefits issue, but not through an appeal, through the legal process. They will resolve quickly and on good terms.
And that is about it. We got to slide out of here. Thank you so much for all your contributions to the show, phone calls and the radio show, emails as well, which, by the way, you can catch us first, radio show, News Talk 1010 Sundays at 1 p.m. or use the phone number and contact information throughout the show, which we give, 1-855-821-5900. Ask at EmploymentLawyer.ca and that website that is so important. And it's easy for you to use. It's free. It's anonymous. Pocket EmploymentLawyer.ca. And while you're there, take that severance calculator out for a spin because it's rolled in. It's baked into that website as well. Thank you so much for catching the show. We'll catch you next week right here. Ask a Lawyer on CP24.